First of all, on behalf of the IMO Secretary General, I'm wishing all excellencies, representatives, and participants a very happy World Maritime Day. Building on the theme of today, seafarers at the core of shipping's future, it will be my honor and privilege to enlighten you on the efforts that have been undertaken in IMO to support the seafarers who were seriously affected over the last 19 months by the COVID-19 pandemic. So I would like to share my screen. The world last year was actually quite unexpectedly being confronted with the COVID-19 pandemic, which also had very significant impacts on the shipping industry and on the seafarers themselves. Currently, over 250,000 seafarers on board ship have been affected. And that means that a similar number of seafarers who cannot leave their ships can also not join these ships. It's all caused by travel restrictions, reports, also important travel restrictions in airports and inland, and it meant that thousands of seafarers could not leave their ships, be repatriated home, had crew changes, or even are receiving urgent medical assistance. Also, many seafarers have seen their contracts unilaterally terminated, or have been have been quarantined on board ships or on shore, and sometimes more than 14 days, which should be required, and even without being paid. So also, the COVID-19 related abandonment cases have increased dramatically. Over last year, there were 85 cases being reported to the joint IMO-ILO database. But this year already, we have 63 cases. So we are actually approaching to break the records that were set of last year. And that no doubt is exacerbate the crew change situation. I already mentioned a similar number of 250,000 seafarers await the ability to join ships as part of a crew change and are unable to work. So we're still in the crisis. It is somewhat less dramatic than it was last year, when in the summer the top was about 400,000 seafarers not being able to leave their ships. So in total, more than the 800,000 seafarers were actually seriously affected. So there's now about 500,000 seafarers. Well, this inability to change crews has resulted in a crisis which was described by Secretary General Mr. Kitak Lim as having three dimensions: humanitarian, a safety dimension, and an economic dimension. So over the previous year and this year, IMO, together with the International Labour Organization, the World Health Organization, the International Civil Aviation Organization, the branches, the trade unions, the International Trade Federation, the International Shipping Chamber of Shipping, and the International Maritime Health Association, and all other organizations, NGOs, and charities are working tirelessly at all levels to find solutions. Actually, also IMO is quite effective in that, in having being established the Seafarer Crisis Action Team. I will explain. In the start of the pandemic, we were confronted with situations like people having medical issues, having strokes. In this example, we were grateful for the assistance of Indonesia to have a seafarer who had a stroke being evacuated. Also, there was then little known about the effects of the pandemic. So there were serious concerns, and the people are looking scared and having their protection clothing on. And the person was successfully being evacuated. Many of these cases happened, but it was quite spectacular to see this happening in the start of the pandemic, that we could organize such actions. So IMO has intervened promptly by urging member states to designate seafarers as key workers, and that has been quite the concept that seafarers should, regardless of nationality, when in their jurisdiction and providing an essential service, being respected as the same level as essential workers, as health workers, and people in the logistic industry. Also, IMO was urging states, the member states, to grant the professional seafarers and marine personnel with any necessary exemptions from national travel or movement restrictions in order to facilitate the joining and leaving of the ships. And actually, because IMO could not physically have meetings, these measures were all promulgated by the Secretary General, which recommended these protocols, which were developed by trade unions and by the industry by means of circular letter the 4204 series. Later on, they were also being formalized, adopted in a resolution during the ALCOM meeting. Maritime Safety Committee resolution 473 actually is recommending action to facilitate ship crew change, access to medical care, and seafarer travel during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Seafarer Crisis Action Team, SCAT, was established by the Secretary General of IMO and was really working around the clock. We were actually working day and night, contacting representatives from national governments, the NGOs, the trade unions, relevant associations, in order to get seafarers being assisted in their repatriation actions and actually request for urgent medical care. This team is still in existence, and we still on a daily basis are dealing with such cases. And seafarers and their relatives can contact directly the SCAT by email to the info email address at info@imo.org. That still is functioning and is able to assist seafarers in urgent needs for care. So another example in the Far East, where effective diplomatic intervention, the seafarer having serious heart problems. He looks good here, leaving finally the ship where he was actually locked up for quite some time, but you can also see that immediately the person had to be taken to hospital. So I would like to conclude, Mr. Tati, that IMO is encouraged by the progress made so far by many countries to designate seafarers as key workers and to facilitate crew changes and repatriations. But I have to say that up to today, only 60 member states have actually informed IMO of having made this urgent matter. So there's more work to be done by member states in this respect. So we are quite somewhat concerned about where our member states, where restrictions are still in place. So we would call to actually to consider designating seafarers and granting those exemptions to travel restrictions, because we are still on the verge of a humanitarian crisis, and it's also a real safety issue. We cannot expect seafarers that are currently on ships, and it are 250,000 at the moment, to continue to stay on ships at sea forever. There are cases being noted of seafarers for more than 2 years now on board their ships, and that's far over the maximum period agreed by ILO, the Maritime Labour Convention, to have tours of duty that are significantly longer than 11 months. That's really the maximum length of seafarer contracts. And it's also not accepted as exemption, as an excuse by force majeure to have a longer period than that 11 months. That's not acceptable. So it is the responsibility of the governments to ensure that seafarers and ships can continue moving, to enable the world to overcome and recover from the pandemic, and to keep the global economy afloat. It's all our own responsibilities. Also, the United Nations in the General Assembly adopted a resolution which urged member states, it's in the operative paragraph 3, to designate seafarers and other marine personnel as key workers. So that's really the key to the solution of the crew change crisis and the whole position of seafarers during the pandemic. Furthermore, last May, in the Maritime Safety Committee, the 103rd session, a resolution was adopted by which seafarers are urged to be prioritized in national COVID-19 vaccination programs, and also that seafarers, regardless of their nationality, are vaccinated as designated port. So we call on the member states actually to provide for such programs, because vaccination is, of course, the other major initiative actually to counterfeit the whole pandemic. So thank you for your attention, and I leave the further program to you, Mr. Matati. Thank you so much.